This is a test. I'm just gonna fire it up. So I was talking to my dude about the usual black pill talking points. And I was wondering, I normally just accept my opinions and my so-called evidence and worldviews just as fact because they jive with how I feel and what I've constructed as my reality. But I was like, what about empirical data? Is there empirical data that supports my worldview or even refutes it? I don't really care. I don't even care if it refutes my worldview and tells me I'm wrong because I'll still believe what I believe because things are changing, especially when we're talking about things that have already changed a lot. When we're talking about black pilled, nihilistic opinions on society, we're talking about how things have changed and how things will change and how things are changing. So I was like, well, let's get some empirical data because I'm normally just spewing my opinion. And I looked it up. Let's have some AI cook us up some research on Pew Research. These studies, 42% of adults say dating apps have made finding a partner easier, and only 22% say it made it harder. I was telling my dude about how a long time ago, these internet dating websites weren't all owned by one giant conglomerate. All of the dating apps are now owned by one dude. Match Group owns the vast majority of dating apps, including Tinder, Hinge, Match.com, OkCupid, Plenty of Fish, and Our Time. They control most of the market. Bumble is owned by someone else. What share of online dating is owned by Match Group? Match Group is the dominant leader, controlling an estimated 30-40% of the total market share globally. What about in the United States? The company boasts roughly 82 million monthly active users, with Tinder representing 37% of dating app usage in 2025. 60% of their revenue and 66% of its paying users come from just Tinder. 2/3 of Match Group's money flows in from Tinder. So these apps, Tinder and Plenty of Fish, they used to not suck. They suck now, and this is clearly on purpose to extract capital from lonely people. So the dating apps have changed a lot, and it's over for average men. Obviously, we all know the black pilled videos about how you can make a profile with Super Chat and get more messages, and all of the women will want to connect. And then if you're pretty much sub 5, it's over. And if you're average with an average profile, you're not sub 5, but you're not Chad, and you're just an average person, it's also over for you. That's the sub 8 theory. This depends on whether you think it matters anything other than looks. There's lookism. I'm not really sure which opinion I have on whether it's just looks or if other things actually matter in terms of I do believe that in the research that people decide like almost instantaneously. It's like their brain decides for them if they're attracted to someone within like 2 nanoseconds of seeing them because the brain is just that fast and it's subconscious. Um, that does make a lot of sense from a neuroscience point of view. Like you're gonna look like a woman would look at like an ogre, like fucking subhuman ogre, and they kind of have a ick response. And this is like even before the conscious ick response is made, the subconscious ick response is made, and it's fired off in like 2 nanoseconds by the woman's brain. And it's like a survival mechanism that's evolved for like a million years to make sure that bad genetics from ogres are not likely to be passed on. Um, we might be at the Great Filtration. It's like the Fermi paradox, but for ogres. It's the Great Filtration effect that we're going through right now to make sure that all future humans that we've weeded out these genetic anomalies to weed out the bad genes from the gene pool is being perpetrated by we've reached a point in society where the ogres may be used to increase defense um, for the weaker half of society, the women. But now that women have safety and defense guaranteed by a larger apparatus controlled by society, that we can get rid of the ogres now. So we're filtering them out on Tinder. Um, so yeah, the dating apps are cooked. We all know that. I just wanted to see if there was some empirical data about this, talking about some people report making it easier to form relationships, while some people report that it makes it harder, and that the trend that men say that they're not getting matches, they get ignored. They're not getting any success on these apps. The um, the story that they tell is apparently reflected by some of the research and the empirical data. Um, Another thing I was wondering about is what has been going on since COVID. I'll probably get demonetized for using the word. I don't know if YouTube is still hard on that or not. Probably. So 59% of people said forming relationships is harder since the pandemic, and 56% said they feel more isolated. So more than half of people think everything has completely changed since COVID in terms of how society functions. Forming relationships and not being isolated is a basic function of society. And things have gotten worse and different since COVID. So isolation increased sharply after 2019 and has not returned to pre-pandemic levels, especially among lower income groups. That makes a lot of sense. That if you're like pretty successful in a career, you're making, a six-figure salary in a major city, you're gonna have a social connection to a lot of people just from the structure of what you're doing. Let's say you're a software engineer in a major city, you're going to be not only having social connection on the internet to your friends and your family that you used to have connection with, but you're going to be constantly having new connections, work related. You're going to be in Slack, etc., and you're going to be going to an office a few days a week or however many times you're forced to go to the office and do real people stuff, IRL. You know, so if you're in a lower income and you're just a delivery guy, you're going to be a lot more isolated. Um, you work for UPS or Amazon and you're just delivering packages, or you're whatever like lower income job you're in. These lower income jobs, they're and working for with the public, like working in retail, doesn't really connect you with other people either. You're still kind of isolated. You're dealing with people a lot, but you're not forming connection because it's a transaction. Like you're just you're facilitating a transaction between the company you work for and the customer when you work in retail, and it's extremely draining. There's you might form a connection with a coworker, but other than that, you might form a connection with a regular customer that you see. It's going to be like less than 1% of the people you interact with in those environments, though. It's going to be the exception, not the rule. Like you're not going to be like extremely socially connected in these low income jobs. So this empirical research actually supports what I think about that. That's actually true, according to JAMA Network Global Study. Um, Loneliness among Americans has increased by measures such as the UCLA Loneliness Scale. The thing about this it just shows how cooked we are in terms of isolation and loneliness, especially among men, is that we have something called the UCLA Loneliness Scale. That they're like it's so over for society that we even invented this in the first place to fucking study the loneliness. That just shows how bad it is. About 1 in 5 adults report daily loneliness, a high rate compared to historical norms. These data suggest a real measurable rise in isolation. So that was like two of the things that I wanted empirical data. I wanted to go over the empirical data, like the dating apps are cooked and the loneliness is cooked. Like people don't go out and meet people. I was talking with my dude about, I just was like firing off my black-pilled, nihilistic point of view. And my dude is a lot more optimistic and he's younger. And I'm like, I hope it works out for people like you. I'm just pessimistic because, like, I got the facts. I feel like I'm justified in my nihilism. So, supporting empirical support versus nuance. Men tend to experience online dating differently than women, more competition and less engagement. A majority of people report greater difficulty forming relationships since the pandemic. Isolation has increased. Average men are the data does not clearly show that average men are universally shut out of romantic success. This is like a cope, but that would be it's a cope is that's like saying that the Lucasm is wrong, the sub-8 theory is wrong, that average men are not universally shut out of romantic success, and it's a common cope that I've seen fat people and short dudes and ugly dudes, and they have girlfriends or whatever. This is a common cope. It is a fantastic thing to have. We shouldn't hate these other men for having some kind of success. But we don't know what their success looks like because obviously we can't. There's not enough. It's impossible to actually get empirical data that's accurate enough. And 3 high-value sources you can actually cite: the Pew Research, Forbes, and JAMA. So those are some sources that ChatGPT pulled up for me. I just was curious if, I'm all about these black-pilled, nihilistic point of views. I do think they're right, just on my own experience as well as the vibe, and I hear it repeated. I hear it repeated by even men in real life. Like, obviously, the internet is not real, and there's some funny shit going on the internet. But once it leaks out into the real world and everyone's aware of the same thing in the real world, it's like, oh, it's over. Like, we're now just being influenced. Reality is now being influenced at a higher speed by the things on the internet than vice versa. Reality is seeping into the internet is slow, and internet seeping into reality is fast paced. Like that's crazy. Um, if the bandwidth in one direction is minimal and the bandwidth in the other direction is maximal, that's that indicates a lot, in my opinion.